Hey guys, Dan here, CEO of Visual Fizz with Rebecca. Today we're going to be talking about why consistency wins in marketing altogether. We're going to be talking about heritage brands, modern brands, marketing tactics, and a whole lot of other things. I have Rebecca here from the Visual Fizz team. Rebecca, thanks for joining. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your position, what you do here.
Yeah, for sure. I am Rebecca. I have been with Visual Fizz for about 4 years. I am the senior marketing manager here. I have about a decade of experience in marketing, social media, paid and organic, campaign strategy, creative, all of it. So definitely very excited to be here today.
Yeah, I am too. I'm a big believer that consistency and I say persistency, consistency, and efficiency are like the ways to succeed in most marketing campaigns. And it doesn't matter if the company is a brand new startup that's trying to go viral on a platform or a 150-year-old company that produces rubber tires or something like that. The biggest thing that we always see in the marketing space is that if you're consistent, you oftentimes have a chance of winning. We talk about that a lot in social media, in brand, in content and other things. I'd love to get your take on what consistent marketing means to you.
Yeah. I mean, consistent marketing is actually a lot bigger of a term or a lot bigger of a task, I would say, than it sounds. Consistent marketing is consistency across channels as well as consistency in terms of effort. So you always have to be putting new content out there consistently on social media channels, emails, blogs, your website always has to be, updated. All of those channels need a consistent cadence of new content. And then those different channels all have to kind of speak with each other and kind of work as one system with a goal in mind. So all of those pieces of consistency across the channels, across the content, across the cadence all go in, to ending that, user journey, pointing them all in the same direction. So they're all ending where we want them to end, right? Which is usually, the goal, the purchase, the lead. All of those things lead to that bottom of funnel. And without consistency, it's not possible to do that. So I think
Yeah.
it's the most pivotal thing in marketing, really.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, you're going to hear us say consistency probably 100 times at least during this thing. So just be ready for it. Consistency is key, and we're going to be consistent about that. I completely agree with you. And I think one thing that many organizations, especially ones that maybe don't have full service marketing agencies or larger marketing teams, they don't consider is that they think that you build a website and people show up. You do an SEO audit and maybe clean up that website and do maybe a push for a month or two, and people don't really show up. You hire a video person for a month and put out social, and that's the end of it. And so oftentimes when especially working with these heritage brands, brands that have been around for a long time, multi-generational, brands that have never had a marketing department or team, whether it's an agency or individuals, they run these pushes that maybe due to a passion, due to a new person, due to some sort of goal in mind,
Yeah.
but it doesn't go anywhere beyond, hey, oh, we cleaned up our act a little bit. But that consistent push for a long time is what really leads to success. I've seen it so many times in so many industries. What would you say is this is kind of a trick question because I know your answer already. Like, is the allotted time for companies to start seeing traction, not success, but at least start to see traction amongst doing things on a regular basis?
I mean, I would say you're going to see those initial impacts within the first 30 days. You're going to see a spike in impressions. You're going to see maybe, increase in reach when you go from nothing, right? To posting something or putting effort somewhere, you are going to see immediate visibility results. But in order to form that connection and move them down the funnel, obviously that does take longer. So that's why consistency is so important. It can't just be framed for, "Oh, let's do this 1 month burst and then like ghost our social audience for 6 months." Like
Mhm.
you're not going to get far enough, but you will see the proof of concept. You will see the results in terms of more views and more eyes, and people are talking about it. Your employees are engaging on that content. So you will see something, but it does take more time, obviously, to see that end result for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes people expect results right away. And in the age of AI, it's only getting faster.
Mhm.
But I don't think that still reflects in, especially our world, which is B2B primarily. That whole seven touch point thing, I think, to be candid, is a thing of the past. I don't think that there are seven touch points anymore before people make a sale. Maybe before they contact you or go on your website. In my opinion, it's probably closer to 12 to 15 touch points. Users are doing quite a bit of research before ever contacting you, and they're doing more than ever to a point where you may, if you do not have the proper attribution tools, know that they're doing the research at all. And they may go on your website 5 times, look at your socials, start researching your team, looking at your products, talking to individuals, and you'll never know if you're not tracking that all. Consistency is the name of the game here, but I'm curious, as we're running full campaigns within, let's call multi-channel campaigns, what are some success metrics that you and we look at in order to ensure that this consistent work that we're offering for our clients is actually working?
For sure. Yeah, and I think that could be, a different metric for every different avenue, really. But I think, going off of audience, how many eyes are, kind of engaging enough to hit that follow button, I think is very important. I think when there's repeat website visitors, if you have somebody who keeps coming back to view your content, those are people actively doing research, right? So we know anytime someone is clicking on your profile, they saw your post and were interested enough to take additional action. That if they clicked your website, they saw enough to take additional action. So I think that, to generalize a little bit, anytime someone is taking additional action, they're clearly interested, they took one step and now they're looking to take that next step, whatever that KPI is, whatever that metric is, that's important because we're making that connection. That's clearly an audience that's interested enough to take that next step. So those are the true audience we want to speak to. So anytime we're seeing repeat customers, anytime we're seeing, additional audiences are growing, on whether it be email or social media, any type of campaign, I would say anytime we're seeing that engaged interest, additional interest, that is like the most important thing, because we're moving people down the funnel, right? We're taking those steps to get them down to that lead.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wanted to touch on email because it's kind of everybody knows it. We've at this point been raised with it, many of us, and it's one of those where consistency, I think, beyond others, is key in a sense. A lot of people said email is dead every 3 years. There's another group that says email's gone. And I'm a big believer that consistency in email is huge because timing is everything. A lot of times people will see their emails get deleted, kind of similar to social. People brush on it, they look at it, and there we go. That was your impression. So what? But the moment, this is where consistency and frequency kind of within consistency plays such a huge part. There's that right level of being shown or served an email, an ad, an organic piece, a blog, whatever, to a point where when the timing is right, and it will eventually be right, that individual whom you're trying to reach will actually contact you back. I've seen it so many times, but it may take 30 emails, 50 emails, being on the newsletter. But when the timing is right, which could be a 2, 3, 4 year conversion, they'll contact you because you are in their inbox. You're being found on their LinkedIn, whatever it may be. I'm curious, are there any maybe even projects or clients that we've worked on whereby doing something consistently over and over and over again with quality, the client has seen that type of result?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that Rose Paving is actually a really good example because they were a multi-location paving company. And we were able to send targeted direct emails to them pretty consistently. And I think the key behind, sending those emails to those specific locations and those customers is we were always adding value and providing education. It was based on seasonality, what was going on in that area at that time, what service would they probably need. So oftentimes I feel the emails were landing in people's inbox right around the time that they needed seal coating, right around the time they needed crack sealing, because we had things timed out. For Tampa weather is different than Chicago weather. We had a system, so we were able to kind of predict what they needed before they even needed it and provided them that upfront value with a little bit of education behind it. Why does this keep happening every year? Is this something I need to plan for? So it kind of goes down the rabbit hole. And obviously, supplementing those with dedicated landing pages and paid social campaigns targeted to those locations, we're really able to get in front of them again with that problem they have that needs to be solved before they even know that it's a real problem. So I think Rose Paving was a really good example of how we were able to segment those audiences out by location and kind of get in front of them in a customized way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I do remember those emails. And every time we had specific calls with sales teams at each sub-organization or location, we would hear back that every location would get 5, 10 plus leads from every email. So the timing just had to work. I want to talk about the agency space a little bit and then dive back into consistency. Visual Fizz is an agency that works with a slew of different customers, and oftentimes we find ourselves actually working heavily within niches of organizations. We work within the paving space, the concrete space, the cap space, the ceiling components, X-ray machinery, kind of steel beams, like that's our bread and butter. But a lot of times there's apprehension before launching with an agency for many in-house teams or CEOs, C-suite, et cetera, due to the fact that agencies can oftentimes be seen as generalists. Now, we've been, at the time of this recording, we're almost 10 years old as an agency. I'd say 5 of those, we've been really deeply honed into these types of verticals and niches. How do we as a team, this is a little bit self-serving for the Visual Fizz side, how do we as a team get to know our clients to a point where they feel comfortable for us to create consistent content on a regular basis, given that, we are not technically, in-house with them on a regular day-to-day basis?
Right. No, that's a great question. And I think, the answer is kind of similar to their sales cycles. I think we take a longer, maybe not a longer onboarding, we take a more detailed onboarding approach to these B2B companies because they are more complex to understand. So we do take the time, we do audits, we look at their competitors, who is their ideal audience, who are we speaking to, and we have all of these strategy calls and audits and deep dives and really get to know not only the industry but also our clients one-on-one, interviewing some of their team members as well. So I would say sometimes in the agency world, like long onboarding is like a trigger word. I almost, took it back, but I think in B2B, it should be a longer onboarding because it is more complex. We do ingrain ourselves with these companies and we really get to know the ins and outs of who they're serving. It's a longer sales cycle because it's a little bit more complex, I guess, in the marketing world, but I think it's needed, and it's how we are really able to be an extension of their team is by really becoming industry experts ourselves in these fields. And I think it has helped from the agency side. OEM manufacturing parts can be for like food and beverage or like powder coating supplies. Like that is something that there's still similarities, right? So like our experience with like a construction company is a little bit similar to a paving company. It's not exactly the same. They are different target markets, in some cases one to the other, but there is a thread that you can string together with that experience. By consistently working with these companies, we're able to have such a process to really get ingrained with them and then have that consistent strategy that's mapped out, because we know their whole sales cycle now. We know when you're slow, we know when you're busy, and we know when you need that extra push and maybe not. So it's that longer time of education or just more hours or more time up front to really get to know them before we kind of launch everything else. So I think it's hand in hand.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the word that I came back to when you were talking about it was like a very thorough onboarding. And you're certainly right that we all know how to purchase a consumer packaged good product. I always go back to socks for some reason, but it's very easy to sell a staple like socks, but it's very complicated to sell a $45,000 piece of machinery that's only utilized by a subgroup of a subgroup. And so we can't go into this thing blind thinking that we're just going to run a specific type of ad and call it a day, and start tweaking. Because it's not easy to sell hordes of socks in the world of commoditized socks, but it's a lot more simple. The sales cycle is very trigger based. Hey, I need socks, I'm going to buy socks. I want to talk about the sales cycles. So during this shoot, so to speak, we're working on something called VF3. This is Visual Fizz 3.0, and it's a big departure from where we've been for the past 9 and change years. Visual Fizz 1, getting our legs. Visual Fizz 2, really scaling up to be a B2B brand with some kind of agnostic focus in other areas, figuring out who we are, scaling up the team. Now VF3 is a big one. It's all about sales cycles and complex organizations, complex teams, expansions, mergers and acquisitions, staff augmentation. We're diving really deep into the meat of these organizations, generally what we call mid-market and larger. Let's call it 20, 50, 100, $500 million revenue, but that isn't as important. But we dive in and we're trying to grow these companies from the inside out. Now, oftentimes what happens when you hire an agency or talk to an agency, they spew out all of the services that they offer. And we're pushing a different direction called solutions, not services. If a company is doing $200 million and by the next 2 years they want to do $250 million, how do we get them there? And then we go into that cycle. The complexity of it is we have very long sales cycles for many of our clients. One solution is shorten the sales cycle. But the other solution is what happens after the sales cycle. We're going to dive in a lot into this topic. But what happens after the sales cycle, most agencies, they're gone. They're looking at the next sale. Visual Fizz is looking at saying, okay, well, you just landed yourself a $100,000 client with or without our help. How do we take that client and make their LTV, their lifetime value of customer, 500,000, $1 million? Because it's a lot easier to increase the value of a customer that exists than win a new customer. All in all, to say, for Rebecca, we deal with complex industries and sales cycles that can last anywhere from 3, 6, 12, 24 plus months. Consistency is never more important than when you have to win someone over, and B2B is all people, right? You have to win that person over, that group. You have to win them over months and months and months and months. From the digital side, from the marketing side, how do we do that and keep their attention for literal, possibly years? How does consistency play a role in that piece?
I mean, I think consistency is how you keep their attention, right? That's almost the answer is you have to keep kind of giving them value, give them something that they are looking for already. A lot of times, these B2B stakeholders are not on social media, like scrolling for like the trendy video. They're looking for maybe answers or ways to make their jobs and lives easier, especially on a platform like LinkedIn. So us continuing to educate them on why this company is here to help them, and honestly like staying in front of them in that sense of how can we address all of these pain points that you're going to ask in a sales call. How can we answer those questions digitally? How can we give you those answers without even having to make that phone call? We give them a social media post, we give them an article, we give them a video, we give them a blog. There's a whole slew of content then for this brand before anyone makes that phone call. And like you said, they're looking at your website, they're looking at your social, they're creeping you, they're stalking you on your socials before they ever reach out. So if we're able to get in front of them, knowing that everyone is Googling you before they're making that phone call, right? If we're able to get in front of them and answer all those questions they are going to ask the sales rep, you already did half of the work. Honestly, like giving them all that information up front, we're already setting the sales team up for more success because they're, oh, I saw on your social that you do this, this, and this. Like, tell me more about that. You're already deepening that connection and you already have this top middle funnel information all right in front of you. So by the time you get to sales, it's really about the logistics of that particular project. So it's honestly like, in a sense, shortening the sales cycle. If you think about it from an audience perspective, we're already giving them all this information. So they have less barriers. There's less barrier to entry. There's less questions they have or less concerns. We're building trust with them. We're answering all those questions for them. So then when it comes to sales, they're in the door a little bit quicker maybe, or they're ready to make their decision by the time they reach sales because they've gotten your email newsletters for years now and they know you know what you're talking about. So it's really just about sealing the deal, I guess, at that point for sure.
Yeah, I am a huge proponent of that. There, especially in the world of heritage brands and ones that are a little bit more salesperson, physical salesperson focused. That's all fine, but I do believe that there's always been this mix of oil and water when it comes to marketing, especially with agencies and marketing departments that are small. Many of these companies that do hundreds of million in revenue have maybe one marketer because that's what often just was the case. I can give you 20 scenarios of that situation. And the sales team and the marketing teams, they don't mix very frequently, which is a shame because at the end of the day, the marketing team, like you said, can do a lot of damage before it ever hits the sales team. So what happens is instead of the sales team member having to push and push and push, my big belief is you can probably do 75%, like you said. I honestly, I think you said half. I think it's more. I think you could do 75% right on the website, right through your channels, and explain everything you do, which is why we at Visual Fizz have, again, time of the shoot, 80 plus case studies. We have 55-star reviews. We have these, lovely growth series podcast. There's so in-person events. There's so much information out there that the way I see it is when somebody calls me or our clients who are on the sales team, they should be sold. At that point, all they need to know is the price and the services they're getting. And if that fits, then you're done. And I think that's the biggest thing is like you've instilled trust in your buyer, kind of like what you mentioned, to a point where those individuals who are ready to buy with you, they simply need to know that there's a person at the end of the line that's going to be there for them for whatever service, product, whatever they end up buying. So yeah, I certainly agree with you. Okay, the
But I
hot
mean,
topic of
I
the,
think
oh, go
that
ahead,
like
sorry.
even sales, like the sales team aspect of it, like I do think it's such a funny concept that like sales and marketing don't get along because really, if you're doing marketing right, like everyone is on the same page. We're all working towards the same goal, right? Like marketing should be helping sales to get X down the line. I think it's just a difference of like almost like left brain, right brain, right? Because like sales wants, if sales had it sales way, every social post would be about their latest product or, you know, buy this, buy that, sign up for this. Whereas marketing has to build that trust. That trust key, I think, is what that oil and water is. Sales is used to building maybe that trust themselves directly, whereas marketing is helping build that trust with a larger audience, your larger target audience. So it's more of like a blanket education. So I think both need to be there, but I do think it's funny the concept of like sales and marketing not maybe getting along sometimes when really marketing is the engine that's helping push the sales.
Totally, totally. And I think that with this VF3 concept, that's what we found is we need to, as marketing individuals, get as close to the sales team as possible. And I think sometimes marketing teams and sales teams are kind of, well, marketing agencies sometimes are a little nervous to do that. And that's why I dive in so heavily about, okay, we got the attribution around where did this lead come from? Who did it come from? How did it, get in the door? But what next? And you can easily do that. Again, I'm going to go back to socks. You can easily do that when you sell socks on the website. It's D2C. It came from a Facebook ad. Here's here's what it's attributed to. The average sale order is this. Easy peasy, right? Like we've had that technology for a decade. But what we don't have in the same vein, especially for companies that don't have a complex CRM system, that don't have attribution tools, that don't have tracking tools to the extent of how complex they can get. Let's go back to that email example. When you're sending an email from the point of view of a sales coordinator or account executive, and the person picks up their cell phone after seeing that email and calls them, there's no attribution sent back to the agency or the marketing department unless a manual effort happens. Sure, you can do call tracking and other things to get even more fancy, but oftentimes heritage companies are not going to get that far. We just want the lead. But assuming we don't have the call tracking and everything to that extent, we don't know the value of that email until all parties get on board. And when we do, I mean, the salesperson makes commission, the marketing team celebrating, and that one email could be valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars, but without working on both sides, you have no clue.
Right.
And that's the biggest disconnect. So we're trying to dispel this kind of oil and water thing and basically just turn it into wine. Okay, I want to go to a different topic because this is one that comes up every single day, every single panel I go to, every single thing I talk about, it's always AI, right? AI is everything now. Consistency has gotten easier to some extent for a lot of companies with small teams because of AI, but it's also gotten more challenging in ways. AI slop is a very common term that's used, lack of personalization. And you definitely have both sides where some folks revel in what is AI, which I think all of us kind of do. And then some of us are also a little bit skeptical of how much AI should be used in marketing. Where does it start? Where does it end? Right? And that's a big one, especially when you're working with an agency or a marketing department. We've seen a lot of different viewpoints. I'm curious of your thoughts of utilization of AI as an agency, or I'm curious about your utilization of AI as a marketing department to deliver deliverables for marketing teams, clients, companies. I'll keep it broad intentionally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, you know, AI is definitely upon us. I think everyone's using it, maybe whether they admit it or not. Like, we're all using it within our workflows. I think it's how is it being used is the most important thing. I think it's great at being able to compile information from multiple sources at once and have starting points for conversation and things like that. But I think the strategy of it all, like I think still it comes from us, you know, like you can get a lot of information from a lot of sources in a very quick way, right? But then you still have to put together, you know, the strategy behind it, the why. And I think as long as we're still, you know, not allowing AI to take over the piece that makes all companies different, right? Like that's how you stand out in marketing is by not being like your competitor about filling in gaps in certain spaces. I think continuing to come together as a team and say, okay, this is the research that we've compiled with the help of AI. What now? Like, where do we go from here? And then coming together creatively to put together that strategy, I think, is the most important way. I think here at Visual Fizz, like, we pride ourselves on not just being like a boring like industrial like marketing agency. Even though those are the companies we serve, we still have a creative twist to all of our industrial projects. We're not letting things go out the door that are just like subpar or just AI slop. Like, I don't want to see, like, I call it AI word salad. Like, I can't I can't even read AI word salad. Like, I think something in my brain is just programmed to like shut down. Like, I can't do it. So I think all of the content still needs to be real. It still needs to sound human, whether or not AI helped you write it. Like, I think the human aspect is how we hang on to being individuals, not only as like personally, but in companies. Like, that's the only, if we're all using AI at once, the only thing that is like differentiating us is us still coming together as humans and coming together with that strategy. And how can we be creative? How can we push further on this? I think AI may have made it easier to be consistent, but I think it raised the bar for everyone. If anyone can make an AI flyer that looks the same as everyone else's, what can we do creatively to be standing out amongst the AI slop and word salad? Like, we still have to up level ourselves. So if anything, like, yes, I think everyone's using it. I think a lot of people are using it too much and maybe shouldn't be using it, but that's neither here nor there. I think how we set ourselves apart is still putting our brains together and having that strategy and taking it to the next level, whether it be creatively, strategically. But I think AI has been great at helping us really connect those dots, though, between like sales and marketing and working in complex industries. I think AI has been great for us to be able to compile a lot of that starting information and really be able to up level what we're doing. I think it's just making us push ourselves even further. How can we get better? How can we connect these dots and this attribution even further? Is there automations that we can set up to do so? Like, I think like the automations and different agents and things like that, I think is something that is really going to help that connecting that sales and marketing team together. I think AI has made that possible, or more possible in an smaller scale.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I've been calling it an AI sandwich, and I think you have to have a human at the beginning and a human at the end, and you allow AI to help you along the way. It's generally driven by efficiency, and oftentimes you're certainly right that at the end of the day, AI is an amalgamation of many different things already. So it is a smoothie of content and information, and in any form of marketing, whether it's social media or SEO content, I do think you're just getting a regurgitation of the same. It is incredible in terms of it being a tool and in the way of creating and finding efficiencies that you otherwise couldn't have created, right? But I do believe that as agencies and as marketing departments, our job is to differentiate amongst all of our competitors. And, let's just say it, right? If it's a small organization, they can't bring on a marketer, they can't bring on an agency, AI is probably a pretty good starting point. As long as somebody reads it over, looks at it, and tries to improve upon it a little bit. But I'd say the larger you get, the more serious you get. And by the way, for context, we mean AI as a form of your final product, not AI as a tool to help you. It's a great tool to help. But in terms of a final product, like an image, a video, the content, it's good. It's not great yet. And so putting in that human component and combining it is really a great effort in differentiating who you are as an organization. Let's talk about we've mentioned this a couple times. So let's talk about the hidden cost of going silent on social. This is something that happens a lot, especially an area that Visual Fizz likes to focus on, or clients we really enjoy working with, are multi-location companies, meaning that they may have a headquarter or a base, a corporate, whatever you want to call it. And then there are multiple locations across the country, maybe globally, and those have their own challenges too. So I guess I have a two-part question. One, when you have a multi-location setup, that is a unique scenario. I want to talk about that. And then in doing so, because this sometimes, I already know your answer here, but I'm going to ask it. Sometimes there is the silence that happens. Again, due to a passionate employee wants to start something, etc. I'm going to let you take this one. But there's a cost of going silent, especially when we have these multiple locations. What are your thoughts on this kind of whole concept. Both questions. I don't know why I asked them at the same time, but I feel like they go
I
hand in
mean,
hand.
it's okay. I'm gonna flip the order and I'm gonna
Good.
go with to answer your question on the hidden cost of like going silent on social. I think that's very important to talk about, especially in the age of Google like literally indexing social media posts. It's insane how important it is. I think if we're talking about B2B, a lot of people don't post at all, right? Like so the bar is really low for a lot of those people and a lot of those competitors. So posting consistently will really help not only you getting organic reach on social, but now if someone is searching, even the topic that you can be selling, your social posts can come up in within the first page of results. Like we've been working on a campaign for a steel company and I've kind of updated all of their messaging across their socials. We've had a lot of stuff running for a couple months and I Googled like one of the taglines, like just to see like it was like a long string keyword we have kind of across different channels, and their LinkedIn profile popped up in the first page. So like I wasn't even searching the brand name, I wasn't searching anything. I was just searching that like long-term keyword that we were kind of using across multiple channels. Their website didn't pop up, their blogs didn't pop up, their GMB didn't pop up, but their LinkedIn profile is right there. So like I think that right there tells you the importance of social. We're doing the same efforts across all those channels, but Google's actually ranking social as really important if it's coming up, before anything else. So I think in terms of B2B, it's very important because you have such a leg up against your competitors. Like if you're looking at some of these competitors haven't posted social in 4 years, even if you're posting twice a week, that consistency is going to bring you up not only in the social algorithms, your audience, like all those wonderful things we already talked about, but also when people are like literally searching similar terms on Google. Like the more you post consistently, the more activity that profile has, the more important it's going to rank on Google. So it's like hard to even comprehend, like honestly, like how important that is. Honestly, it's a really easy to be invisible by posting nothing, but it's also really easy to be noticed if you are posting consistently. If you're doing this consistently, it's literally showing on like the largest search platform, and not even to mention how it's showing up in AI, because it is also being indexed with AEO and GEO and all those, kind of like search bots, kind of like scrubbing the internet, like social is included in that. So I think in the age where people are researching before they're ever making the phone call, I think social is more important than ever. And people say like, oh, like you can't get any organic social reach anymore. Like there's 5 billion users on the platforms, which also valid. But if we can still get organic reach, organic posting that is showing on Google, I think that's worth a lot more, honestly. And it's all building blocks. It doesn't mean that organic reach is dead. It just means that you have to be consistent. You can't make 5 reels and then give up, like, because, oh, I didn't go viral. Like, it's consistency. You have to keep doing it. And to even kind of like segue into like multiple locations, we have clients that are B2B, but we also have clients that aren't B2B, and having those multiple location profiles or multiple location socials is more important. Say it's like F&B or, e-commerce, like having presence on social, but also having a team at those locations that are able to manage social to some degree is really important. Because say you have an e-commerce business that has 10 locations, you made 10 Instagrams, everyone has their own Instagram, you want to get all your teams in there, but then it just ends up being a repost. You have an Instagram account that's posting it, and then all 10 locations are just posting the same exact content. So you're posting duplicate content and no one's going to really engage or follow with that. If they want to know what's going on at the Pittsburgh location this weekend, like they can't go to their Instagram and find that because it's just like copy paste from all those other profiles. So I think it's even more important, honestly, for our non B2B clients out there, because a lot of those audiences do their research solely on social. I look everything up on social. A lot of times I don't even go to Google. So like if your location isn't on, Instagram or TikTok, or I'm not able to see specifically, like, and I have to go further, maybe sometimes I won't just to be honest, like, I think it's very important for like those restaurant brands, any of those cannabis brands out there, like any of those audiences that are younger, like are researching on social media. There's a reason that like Instagram and TikTok put the search features in their platforms a couple years ago because people are literally searching the same way they would on a Google or in a chat GPT. So I think it's very important to have, when people are searching for you and they're looking for questions, you have to be there with those answers. Those are customers, you know. I say all the time, you know, social is top of funnel, but if you're not there to answer their questions, they sometimes can just go to the next, you know what I mean? So I think in that sense, it's the decision of a customer or not, you know. Am I going? Is there drink specials tonight? Like, are we going or are we not? So I think it's even more important for that, especially because typically in that, again, in that type of industry, you're talking about a younger demographic who's always on social. They're always doing
Yeah.
research on social. So I think it's important for both, but for different reasons.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I often look, especially during kind of like holidays or other things, are you open? You know, because the big thing to note with, especially, well, let's go B2C for a sec, just consumers are, these organizations are not updating their Yelp and their Google hours and things like that. And we kind of know that as consumers, that unless you're part of some large restaurant group or very corporate, you're probably not thinking about, you know, Labor Day hours. But we, like, I do this all the time, and because I like to explore the city, go to restaurants. I go and I find I'm a mid-millennial, right? And age bracket wise. So, but I find myself, I Google everything. I use Gemini, like speech to text for a lot of things. So to your first point, certainly I agree. Like I almost never type in things on Google anymore, and I just use speech to text and write out very long, in-depth questions because I don't have to type it anymore. And that allows me to find things that I otherwise wouldn't. But for the other side of it, like finding drink specials, what's happening tonight, you're also thinking that this is like like you have to get the right people too, because when I'm planning something, I'm not planning it for just me. It's probably me and 5 to 10 others. And so being a food and beverage company, especially in a time where everything's increasing in costs and demand and competition, you may be losing hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, probably greater scheme, probably more than that, in prospective sales. An example of this, which it bothers me to wit's end, is there are so many companies that do not answer their phones, which I know is not what we're going to talk about here, but a lot of us who plan larger events, and we're talking 100 people, 50 people, I want to talk to a person right now. I have a series of questions, and we at Visual Fizz host a lot of events, oftentimes anywhere from 20 to 100 people. And if you don't answer your phone, which is part of this consistency thing, right? People call, they want to make a reservation. You're losing a literal $5,000 sale. And I'm not the only one, because these are big establishments, because you simply can't answer your phone.
Right.
And that's, I think, a piece of it too, is just like auditing what you've got going on. Because if there's a leak in your funnel,
Right.
I mean, for a food and beverage company that's large, it could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of months or years,
Absolutely.
maybe more.
Yeah, and I mean B2C, like the phone call is your sales. Like that is the sales team, right?
Yeah.
Because like B2B, you have all these actual sales teams, but B2C, like contact,
It's the host,
being able
you
to
know? Yeah.
contact like the restaurant or the place of business is literally sales. And yeah, it may fall on like a minimum wage hostess to answer that phone, but you have to make sure they're still doing it as part of their job because it is direct sales. You don't know that. Even like you would be shocked at how many people DM like restaurant accounts, like boilerplate questions, like, and if they don't get the answer, they may go somewhere else. What are your specials tonight? I didn't see them on your stories or whatever have you. Well, this other place is doing this. Like they could easily just go the other, the other option, especially Chicago has, you have endless options, right? For restaurants and bars and those types of like nightlife activities. So I think it's even more important in a place like that because the competition is high. There's one every other block, right? So like you have to be answering the phones. Like you have to be able to, it's like almost like business 101, but it does tie back to marketing, right? Because it's like you're all working together, right? Answering the phones is part of the sales. Marketing is bringing you those phone calls. You have to answer them. It's like, it's like if we got you 50 lead submissions and you didn't call any of them, it's like, what are we doing then? If you're not, if you're not talking to the leads that we've already brought in, they're dead in the water there. So I think, yeah, you have to have that connection. And like you said, if there's like a leak in the faucet, if people aren't answering the phones, like you have to identify that and be always kind of looking, where could that be? Where could we fix that? You could easily attribute then dollars once you fix that problem and you get a call the next week and book a large event for $10,000 or
Mhm.
whatever it is. You know what I mean? You easily just fix that, and then you have a real number to attribute, hey, we were losing at least X amount of dollars this whole time because of this one small inconsistency.
Yeah, a tiny detail. That leads me to when we're going to wrap up here soon. It leads me to the thing that I always say, besides consistency, it's persistency. And I'm a big believer of speed to sale. I talk about this a lot with other sales folks, but not waiting on a lead, waiting days or waiting for them to respond. A lot of our B2B folks oftentimes are not always as fast as they can be to reach out and be a, customer service representative in some capacity. And I think that's where persistency comes in, and being the first, being the best. We help them do that as well. This was a great conversation. As anyone listening can tell, we are very passionate marketers here at Visual Fizz. We've got a lot to say and a lot to think about. We're continuing to improve everything that we're doing from the inside out, with VF3 launching in the next few months. But beyond that, Rebecca working through a handful of really complex, unique campaigns and challenges amongst all of our clients. I'm very excited to be a part of this. And Rebecca, I appreciate you hopping on to one of the first re-envisioned growth series in 2026. And I'm sure we'll see you again on one of these, maybe hosting if you'd like. But thank you so much for today's conversation, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.